MSNBC host Joy Reid's program, The ReidOut, has been axed, and that couldn't have come soon enough. As a news host, her analysis wasn't just full of lies. She earned herself a reputation for constant race baiting and making commentary that was divisive and unhinged. Her strong go-to argument was labelling Trump's team a party of racists and Nazis.
We've laid out the stakes in this crucial election, where one side stands for freedom while the other meets the textbook definition of fascism, namely a far-right dictatorial regime like Hitler's Germany or Franco's Spain or Mussolini's Italy, but also white-ruled South Africa before Mandela and the black majority took control, or Vladimir Putin's Russia, Viktor Orban's Hungary, or Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela today, that suppresses the rights of women and minorities, uses the military to execute the whims of a strongman dictator, and controls and suppresses the press, education, the arts, rewrites history to suit a favored and dominant racial class.
But she also used her program to mock police officers who wanted to make their own personal choices about their health and were fired because they didn't get the COVID jab.
Putting Americans in danger. Officers and unions who are fighting against vaccine mandates, which essentially means fighting to make the public sick, are tonight's absolute worst.
But what about the day-to-day issues, the issues that impact voters? Well, she missed the mark there too. According to Joy Reid, inflation isn't something that Americans really know about. Actually, it's something that they've been taught by evil Republicans.
The people I ever hear use the word inflation are journalists and economists, right? So that is not part of the normal lexicon of the way people talk. So it's interesting that Republicans are doing something they don't normally do, right? Which is not use the common tongue, right? Not use just common English to sort of do on their campaigns like they're doing with crime. But what they've done is they've taught people the word inflation, right? Yeah. Most people who would have never used that word ever in their lives are using it now because they've been taught it.
And her political analysis was just as sharp. She tried convincing her audience that Kamala Harris had an excellent campaign. In fact, it was flawless because she had woke celebrities on board.
I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. She had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swift, she had the Swifties, she had the Beehive. Like, you could not have run a better campaign in that short period of time. And I think that's still true.
Just makes you wonder why her ratings were dropping. Let's bring in Brianna Lyman, elections correspondent at The Federalist. Brianna, thanks so much for your time. Look, Joy Reid has posted a video today, absolutely in tears, insisting that her show added value, and there was really no reflection about how divisive her program had become.
Yeah, look, Joy Reid, these tears don't really matter because just a few years ago, she mocked white women and white men for having white tears, said she didn't care, and now she is the one crying. Also, it's just kind of funny, like you said, there's no self-reflection, there's no introspection. She says that her show adds value. Look, when Donald Trump won the election, MSNBC's primetime viewership dropped 53%. It's since fluctuated a little bit, but it just goes to show you how many Americans have tuned out, and she does not realize that they've tuned out specifically to nonsense like hers that she spews. So the reason she thinks her show adds value is because she has yet to step outside that echo chamber. But now that she's been fired, she has plenty of time to do that.
And look, her show being axed is just a small step, I suppose, because you look at MSNBC's coverage and it's still full of fake news, so much Trump derangement syndrome and no balance. But there are also calls today for The View to go next, when you've got hosts like Whoopi Goldberg spitting when she's speaking about Donald Trump. Look at this.
You can't refute anything with him because he just, when I say him, I mean...
He rambles.
Trump.
Yeah.
He tends to just...
But can I mention one thing? Because
that's on the ABC, of course, but what a class act. I mean, speaking about Donald Trump, you can't make this stuff up. Should The View go next?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Sunny Hostin has faced challenges or she's been in trouble, let's say, by executives at ABC for some of these smears and lies that she spread. There needs to be some level of accountability with these talk show hosts. People tune in to left-wing networks. They expect to get a left-wing talking point. But what they shouldn't expect, or what we shouldn't treat as normal, is the fact that there is nothing but denigration and maligning of characters and character assassinations happening on these left-leaning networks with no actual analysis. You know, MSNBC was created to bring analysis to NBC's reporting, right? And NBC itself has just become just this left-wing psyop, essentially. But MSNBC, you expected left-wing analysis. They have gone overboard. And like you mentioned, MSNBC, this is not the big shakeup that we think it is. You know, they're going to platform people like Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, even more. These people are just as fringe and crazy as Joy Reid. So I'm not really sure what the internal deliberations are looking like, but hopefully they're going to bring some conservative voices on here if they're trying to make changes.
Absolutely, and some better analysis, I would like to say. Let's talk about Kash Patel, the FBI director. He's now facing mounting public pressure to release the client list associated with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Now, during his Senate confirmation hearing, he said he would do everything he could in assisting to expose those involved in Epstein's network. Here he is.
Child sex trafficking has no place in the United States of America, and I will do everything, if confirmed as FBI director, to make sure the American public knows the full weight of what happened in the past.
There's been a slight development. US Attorney General Pam Bondi said that the Jeffrey Epstein client list is sitting on her desk right now. And she's previously said that anyone named in documents related to Epstein who is still fighting to keep their names private will have no legal basis to do so unless they're a child, a victim, or a cooperating defendant. Here she is.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Look, this is of huge interest to Americans. How quickly will these documents be released?
I mean, they already should have been released under the Biden administration, and they should be released under the Trump as soon as possible. Look, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell are the only two people in the world who were convicted of child sex trafficking, or at least Jeffrey Epstein, and apparently to no one, right? We don't know who they were sex trafficking children to. We do know that disclosed documents from years ago said that Bill Clinton likes them young. What that means remains to be seen, but there are definitely people that we need to have accountability for. And recently we saw P. Diddy. He is charged with similar, sex trafficking, horrific parties involving minors. There is a moral rot in our cultural and political elite here in the United States. And if we expect this country to survive, you have to root out that rot, because you can't have people who are leaders or in positions of influence allowing that kind of culture to seep into mainstream America. But that's what it's been doing. So I hope Pam Bondi releases this sooner than later so we can have accountability and we can clean out the moral bankruptcy that we're seeing in this country.
You mentioned the Diddy list there. That's something that Kash Patel has said that he's also going to fight for, so that can get exposed. What else can we expect from Kash Patel now he's been confirmed?
Kash Patel is a fighter for America. He is one of the only people who was willing to stand up to the Russia collusion hoax back in 2017, 2018 with the Nunes memo. So I expect Kash Patel to not only root out all corruption, but I also expect him, and I hope that there will be some accountability for the just onslaught that Donald Trump and the American people had to face during Trump's first term when they peddled this Russia collusion hoax, spent all of our taxpayer money on it, and you had people abusing the system, abusing the FISA court. So I think there's going to be a level of accountability that's on his to-do list.
Look, recently we saw Donald Trump sign an executive order to essentially protect women by banning biological men from competing in women's sport. So it's, of course, a huge win for women across America. But Marine Governor Janet Mills, she wants to be the hero and is refusing to comply. Yeah, she's going to court to defy federal laws that protect women in sport. She's just committed to fighting for the right for biological men to compete against women. But Donald Trump was having absolutely none of it. Here is this exchange.
Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
Look, I have to say, it's just so good seeing Trump in action, isn't it? Just not backing down.
It is so refreshing. And look, Donald Trump can do as much as he can do with these executive orders. It is up to Republicans in Congress, we have control of Congress and the Senate, to take action to codify these types of orders into law, right? Because Donald Trump, again, can only do so much. And when it comes down to this, if Democrats want to double down on these failed radical leftist gender policies that helped them lose in 2024, be my guest by all means, because 2026 will be an easy win for Republicans in the House. But ultimately, it has to be up to Congress to really codify these things because Trump is out of office in 4 years, and this craziness isn't going to end in 4 years.
No, it's not, unfortunately, but we'll watch this space very closely. But it's interesting, President Donald Trump, he's continuing to really dominate in the approval polls. A new Harvard-Harris survey found that he holds a 52% approval rating, 52%. Now, 58% say that he's doing better than Joe Biden. 81% say that they support deporting illegal immigrants, of course they do, and 76% support eliminating fraud and waste, and finally 60% believe that Doge is helping. I can't believe there's still 40% that are somehow against Doge. But looking at those numbers, what's your assessment? It indicates that it's pretty strong.
Yeah, it's really strong. It's also an indictment of how weak our propaganda press has become, because I think people have tuned out to the mainstream media or the left-wing mainstream media. We've seen it in polls. They've turned to X, they've turned to independent journalists and what have you. And as a result of that, they're getting the actual truth, the actual news, and not the media's spin on it. And I think that's contributing to Donald Trump's popularity because people are actually seeing what he's doing, not what the leftist mainstream media wants to pretend he's doing.
Brianna Lyman, elections correspondent at The Federalist, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour.